Before I get into the review, I just want to inform you that this video will have gameplay spoilers and spell spoilers. Nothing related to the story, nothing related to the quest, nothing that you would really want to avoid with spoilers. And I would even argue that it's not spoilers because within the spell tree section to where you unlock the spells, it actually shows gameplay footage of them from the developers themselves. I just want to let you know beforehand so you can't say, oh my god, I didn't want to see that. Harry Potter is one of the most successful franchises when it comes to wizards and witches, and off of the top of my head, I can't really think of any other game. I don't know many Harry Potter games that have come out for consoles or PC, and I know there is one because I saw gameplay footage of it where people were laughing about how Hagrid looked. Other than that, I know that there's a mobile game that's similar to Candy Crush with that style, but there hasn't been a modern Harry Potter game in a very, very, very long time. The first thing I'm going to talk about is combat, and that's because that is the center stone for every single game that I review. If there is no combat in a game, I'm probably playing Candy Crush, and I don't play Candy Crush, so I'm probably not playing a game. I will be honest when I say that the combat in this game at the very beginning, even the beginning game itself, it is kind of boring. You have to probably play for around 5 or 6 hours before the game truly feels like you're doing anything, and that's kind of bad, but it's also good. I think the very first spell that you unlock when you're in Hogwarts is a spell that pulls enemies closer to you. Maybe it's just a levitating spell. I'm not entirely sure, but you don't truly get into the offensive spells until well later into the game. Thing with that is that once you get those spells and you can actually combo those spells with one another, it just becomes very, very, very fun. The one problem with it though is that there's 4 different sections to where you can store spells. Each section has 4 spells to where you can store them, and there's 4 total, but you have to spend skill points on those. And I feel like it's detrimental to the player that they have to invest skill points into a quote-unquote skill tree just to be able to use those skills in combination with all the other ones. I feel like you should have just naturally unlocked the ability to have different spells in those 4 sections naturally every couple of levels. I think the max level in this is 40. There's 4 slots. Why not just make it where once you hit like every 10 levels you unlock it naturally? Instead, you do have to spend skill points, and you cannot get everything in the skill tree. I even spent 0 points in one of the skill trees just because I felt like it wasn't worth it at all. As I said, that once you unlock more spells and you're able to combo it with everything, the gameplay becomes very, very fun. It's very fun levitating someone in the air, then using Depulso and knocking them back into an explosive, or knocking them back into a wall, or even off of a cliff. One of the funner spells that I know that I liked playing with was when you would freeze an enemy and then you would launch like a fireball or bombardo or something, and you could blow the enemy up. That was honestly my favorite spell probably. One of the off-putting things though is that the enemies that you fight in this game also share the exact same spells as you. And I understand that that might be part of the Harry Potter world. There's certain spells having the same abilities as these other people, it's kind of off-putting. You know, if I'm a poacher, I'm probably going to have a gun. Even if I'm a wizard and I can do magic, it's kind of hard to stop a bullet versus stopping me lifting you in the air and then slamming you down. But that's just me, and I understand. You're like, James, this is a magic game, why would there be guns in this? I mean, I'm just saying, realistically, if I'm a poacher, that's what I'm going to have, not rely on magic. But that's not even the big problem. The problem is that the enemies just have the same abilities as you, and it kind of becomes repetitive to where you see an enemy use a spell, but then they're supposed to be a different enemy, but then they're not a different enemy because they all share the same exact abilities. Same with spiders. There's like different versions of spiders, but it's really small spider versus very large spider. And then when it comes to the trolls, there's also the river trolls, the stone troll, rock troll, something like that. Maybe I'm getting my trolls mixed up, and nothing really separates them from any of the other enemies. They all do the exact same thing. Hogwarts Legacy is probably one of the biggest games I've ever played, and I'm not talking about map size alone, I'm just talking about the things that you can do within that world. From the very start of the game, they kind of tell you that you can collect field guide pages, and in Hogwarts Castle, there's like 150 field guide pages alone. And then in Hogsmeade, there's about 50 within the open world itself. I would probably say around 40 or 50. I could be completely wrong with that. That is literally a guess. I 100% of the game, but by the end of it, I wasn't counting and I was just going through every sub-region looking what I have. There's even things that you can collect that are for quests by themselves. You know, you can pop balloons in the sky. There's these things within the game called Merlin Trials to where it's like slight riddle puzzles to where you have to figure them out. All of these things are great, and I really feel like they make this world pop more than it should. There's so much to do in this that you can have such a variety to never be bored. That is 100% the case. But it's also a detriment because I feel like while there is a lot of things to do, there are 90 Merlin trials, if you're wondering. And within those trials, there's like 6 different varieties. But there's also caves to where you can go in them and get treasure chests. And one of the mechanics of the Merlin trials is kind of similar to those caves. So while there is a variety of stuff to do, there's so much to do, it honestly just feels almost overwhelming. Not that it is, because luckily in every sub-region it counts your stats and it tells you what specifically you're missing. Because if it didn't, my god, it would be a headache trying to figure out what you do or do not have. I want to emphasize though, I love the activities within the open world. I just feel like the number of them should be scaled down, not by a lot, because the amount of stuff you have to do is what makes the game good. But I just feel like they should be distributed a little bit more sparingly. A lot of open world games don't really value your time or make you feel rewarded. The thing that I love about this is the puzzles within the open world. The Merlin trials, yes, there is a lot, but they're puzzles and it makes you think about them and have to solve them. They're not hard by any means, but the whole explorative part of it is what really makes this game great for me. I just want to briefly touch on the story of this game. The story itself, I mean, the story is there. I feel like when it comes to the main story, there is the beginning and then there's the end of the story. There wasn't much character development when it comes to this, and to give you slight spoiler, it's not a spoiler, but there's this thing within the game to when you look inside it, it's like a basin with water and you can look inside and see the past memories of people. One of the things that I enjoyed about the story was that just looking into it, and I enjoyed the past stories versus the present day story. I wanted to know more about what happened in the past than I cared about what was going on currently. And I felt like that was a problem because the story itself, Ranrock, who is the main villain in this game, there was just no character development for him. And it wasn't until the very end of the game, the very last mission, is when I was playing it and I was like, oh right, this is what gameplay feels like. It's both positive and negative that if every one of the story missions was similar to the very last one, that this game would have went from being a good game to probably one of the best ever made. I just felt like the very last mission is what made the game shine. If it took that algorithm from the very start, it would have made the game so much better. Instead, the mid part of the game, the story just isn't there. So I felt like there could have been a better variety within the story and the side missions. The side missions themselves were good, but the ending for one specifically was just so generic and I honestly disliked it. When you take everything into consideration with this game, and I want to point out that I have read a few of the books and I have watched a few of the movies, but I am by no means a fan. I feel like anyone can get into this game. This game itself can be a standalone game and not have Harry Potter tied to its name. Although technically I guess it's not tied to itself because it's Hogwarts Legacy, and this is well before the Harry Potter franchises even came to existence. but the amount of stuff you can do in this game, the gameplay elements themselves are great, although as I said, they can be slightly boring at the very beginning. Once you play it and once you get deep into the world, very addicting. And I looked forward every single day to playing this game, and I didn't look forward to playing a game like this since God of War last year. Which, to be fair, there hasn't been very many games that came out between now and then. None of this scale and none of this greatness. And I could very well see myself thinking that Hogwarts Legacy is the game of the year. And I would give this game a solid 9 out of 10. I felt like for it to be one more with the 10, the story missions needed more variety and it needed more action. I understand that the way the combat works, you can't really have hordes of enemies coming at you. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and would I recommend this video game to someone? I would absolutely recommend it to someone, anyone, even if you're not a fan of Harry Potter. If you take the time to play this game, you will definitely feel rewarded for your time and you will enjoy it.